All right, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Today we have a very special guest, Brandon Joe Williams. How you doing, sir?
Excellent. Good to be
Man,
back.
this is the Pickle Man, and by the way, like we did an episode with Brandon way back when. It was one of our first, I think, 20 Blood Money episodes. Brandon's been doing some amazing things in terms of our, I guess you call it our financial sector. Is that how you would refer to it, Brandon?
Yeah, it's the financial system and the legal system and however you want to say it. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's.
Okay. Well, first I want to tell people about your website, onestupidfuck.com. That's a real website, onestupidfuck.com. And, the gist of it. So, Brandon, for people that don't understand exactly what you do, I know we did a Blood Money episode. I think it was Blood Money episode 20 where you explain what you do. Do you want to give as brief as you can, rundown of what you work on?
Everyone in the world, including lawyers, just argue about their own ideas and their own abstract emotions and what they think is right and what they think is wrong. And very, very few, if not anyone, simply just sits down and reads how things actually work. And I basically just read how things actually work. I try to translate them into basic English as best I can. And then I litigate to force people to follow what the law says word for word. And when you learn what the law says word for word, it's absolutely glorious and extremely helpful for you and extremely life-changing. We're talking full diplomatic immunity. We're talking infinite money. We're talking free houses, free cars, free boats, free yachts, free planes. We're talking can't be arrested, can't be detained unless you do something crazy or terrible to somebody. We're talking, no tax liability, no federal income tax liability, no state tax liability, no city tax, no sales tax. You literally manufacture cash with your signature legally.
Wow. Okay, so for people that don't understand that theory, explain to us what is a negotiable instrument, what is a promissory note, what is a Federal Reserve note, how these things are created, because I think people think that is actual real money. And what I've learned from you is that it's money is very different. Money is gold and silver. So take us through what those, titles mean.
Yeah, so if you look at the definition of money, it says that it's gold or silver or sometimes paper. But typically, if you look in the Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, it's very clear. It's gold and silver coins specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask yourself, and you look in the definition, and it says does not embrace notes, bills of exchange, or evidences of debt, anything like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you look up the definition of currency and you look up the definition of funds. And inside of those definitions, you have that it does embrace notes, bills of exchange, and evidences of debt, right? We live in a very strange world where money, quote unquote, is negotiable instruments. So the Federal Reserve notes that you have in your pocket, so negotiable instruments break down into two different categories according to what's called the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 3, which is all about negotiable instruments. In UCC 3, they break down negotiable instruments into just two categories. It's very simple. I don't know why more people don't know about this. I don't know why it's so complicated. It's actually extremely simple. Negotiable instruments are two things, and that's it. One of them is a promissory note, which is defined as an unconditional promise to pay. And the other one is a bill of exchange, which is an unconditional order to pay. And that's it. So everything in your pocket, everything that you sign, everything that we're giving back to each other, everything is either an unconditional promise to pay or it's an unconditional order to pay.
So it's not like you're exchanging money. It's not like gold and silver where you walk in and gold and silver has a intrinsic value. It's more like these notes that we have that we call dollar bills. People refer to as money. They're more promises to pay. They're not actually worth anything. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and whenever you promise to pay anything, such as on a mortgage or on a loan or a bank loan or a business loan or anything like that, that loan documentation, when you sign it, it's not actually a signature. It's actually what's called an endorsement, and it's spelled INDORSEMENT. When you look in UCC Article 3, you can actually found that. Someone actually sent me the definition of that. It's UCC 8-102 subsection 11. Brand new. But anyways, when you endorse the document, such as a loan or a mortgage or whatnot, you are bringing that promissory note into existence as a promissory note security. And then that promissory note security has the full face value of whatever it is that you're promising. And it's worth the same thing as Federal Reserve notes.
Got it. So, Brandon, I want to kind of make sure the viewer understands what we're talking about, right? So, when I started studying basically what you teach, what you translate for, I guess, the layman that doesn't understand the law, what I learned from that whole process was that essentially you could create these things called promissory notes that have value.
You are all the time.
You're always.
It's not that you can; it's that you are.
Explain that to the viewer in terms of, what's actually really enlightening is when you explain when you're making a credit card charge, for example. People think that credit card charge is like a minus, but from what you explain, it's more of a plus. Could you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, so if you look in your card member agreement for whatever your credit card is, you'll see that there's a section in there called promise to pay. And they literally call it a promise to pay. And sometimes, depending on where you go, you'll even see that wording on the actual receipt that kicks out. Or you'll see, by signing this or whatever receipt, you hereby swear to perform as per the card member agreement, which what they're referring to is the promise to pay section. All right. So every time you use your credit card, you are producing a promise to pay. That promise to pay in law has the exact same value as Federal Reserve notes. And the way it works is the way in which you claim or release or endorse that particular instrument determines the exchangeability of that instrument. And what's happening is the bank is using either the FedNow or FedWire system, and they are instantaneously swapping the value of that promissory note for Federal Reserve notes via what's called the Federal Reserve discount window. And the exact process and delineation as to how that works and some basic information is found at 12 USC 412, which is actually a section of the Federal Reserve Act called Note Issues. And if you look in there, it says that anyone can go to the Federal Reserve discount window and they can present collateral securities, which means the original promissory notes that you endorse. And you can write what's called an application for notes, and you can actually collateralize all of those promissory notes and swap them for Federal Reserve notes. And we've gone down this rabbit hole quite a bit, and we've gotten lots of copies of people's mortgages, and we've actually found lots of the various endorsements and things that they are writing just before they take and process these promissory notes and negotiable instruments at the Federal Reserve window. So I started breaking down a lot of the endorsements and stuff that the bank was putting on the documentation. And then now what we're doing is now we fully understand that whole process. And now we are the ones placing that what's called a special endorsement on the instruments as we endorse them from the beginning. So what happens is that what you're doing is when you sign any financial instrument and you do not state the payee on the instrument, the same way you would write the payee on a check. It says pay to the order of on a check, and you write who the payee is, whether it be Starbucks or your buddy or this company or whatever. So if you don't write the payee on a check, people know the term blank check.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing when you don't state the payee on any other financial instrument. You're doing what's called a blank endorsement, INDORSEMENT. It's the same thing as a blank check. Then what happens is the banking institution takes that blank endorsed instrument and they claim it by stating the payee on it using a different type of endorsement called the special endorsement. Now, if you put the special endorsement on the instrument to begin with, then what happens is you are claiming the full value of that instrument. And then what you're doing is you're simply hiring the bank to swap that instrument for Federal Reserve notes and then bring you back those Federal Reserve notes. So you think that you're involved in a situation where they are lending you something. They aren't lending you anything. What they're doing is they are a currency exchange. They are exchanging currency no differently than the way you would exchange Hungarian currency when you go to France at a currency exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Your promissory note that you are manufacturing with your endorsement creates your own currency. You are creating your own currency that has actual real monetary value in law. Massive, actually, massive monetary value, more than you'd ever imagine. Because the value of the negotiable instrument is the value of the full maturity of the negotiable instrument. So, for example, let's say you buy a house. The house is $300,000, and it's 4% or 5% interest over 30 years, and then the full value of the full maturity of the note when it's completed is $500,000. When they go to the Federal Reserve discount window and they swap that instrument for Federal Reserve notes, they're not getting $300,000; they're getting the full $500,000. And then what they do is they give the seller of the home $300,000. They keep $200,000, and now you're also paying the full $500,000 back to the bank, all because you failed to do a special endorsement and you did a blank endorsement on the original instrument without knowing it. That's the problem.
Got it. So, all right. So basically, you're essentially creating the currency by endorsing that document. Is that the way it works? That, let's say in that example where you're getting a $200,000 loan for a house, they give you this document, you sign this document. That's when the currency is being created?
Yes. Your endorsement is what creates, what transforms that document into a negotiable instrument. So it's an instrument. And then when you endorse it, it becomes a negotiable instrument. Negotiable means transferable or exchangeable.
Got it. Okay. All right. So let me wrap my head around this. You're saying that once you get that piece of paper that you're going to sign on the dotted line and you're going to get that $200,000 loan, you're saying that that is a blank endorsement. So if you're saying that if you don't do a blank endorsement, then the money comes to you, could you explain how that process works?
So legally what's happening is that you're claiming the value of that instrument. And in order for there to be a contract, there would need to be some sort of equal consideration between you and the bank. The bank is providing you a service by swapping that instrument for another type of instrument, swapping your currency for Federal Reserve notes. So there has to be some sort of fee or charge that you're going to be giving the banking institution in exchange for delivering that service for you. Now, when you go to a currency exchange, let's say in Europe or something like that, they charge you whatever. I don't even know what it is. I've never done it. I'd say 1% or a couple percentage points or something like that of whatever it is that you are trying to transfer. That is the charge for transferring that value to another type, right? Now, you would have to pay some sort of transfer fee in order for there to be a contract, because there has to be consideration in order for there to be any contract, right? So by offering, so what happens is that instead of gifting or abandoning that security and allowing the bank to take control and ownership of that security.
And when you say gifting, sir, just to pause you, when you say gifting, that's when you do a blank endorsement, you just sign it like everybody else signs it. So
it's a hard thing to really fully define. It's sort of like gifting, but it's not really gifting. And most people would say they're stealing it. Yes, if I were in front of a jury and I were to explain how this all works, the whole jury, without question, I don't care who they are, I don't care what IQ, I don't care what location, what gender, doesn't matter. They're all going to agree that they are stealing the instrument. But in the letter of the law and the actual definitions of the law and the way that the law is actually structured, they aren't legally stealing the instrument. Okay. So if you wanted to sue and you wanted to go all the way to trial, you'll win very easily saying that they stole it. But the thing is that I don't want to necessarily have to go that far, and plus it's not really what I'm trying to do anyways. So what you can do is through fraud, you can actually reverse the contract to the contract's inception. Now what I'm doing is I'm reversing the contract through fraud, and then I'm saying that blank endorsement was fraudulent because I had no idea I was doing that, and I was being coerced into doing a blank endorsement. And then I'm replacing that blank endorsement with a special endorsement from the inception of the contract, and then now basically we're sorting out what that now means in the future, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Fraud is cool because fraud is a way you can sort of like turn back time and you can change things from the past, and then now you're operating as though that change occurred before, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now what we're doing is now it's a situation where I've already swapped out that blank endorsement for a special endorsement, and now we have to sort out what that means in terms of what I'm going to get or what my clients are going to get or whatever. So the thing is that, you know, if the way that it should be working and the way that it legally does work and the way that it will work for me in the future is I place a special endorsement on the instrument. The banking institution, and you can even look up the definition of the word banking, and it says facilitating Federal Reserve services, which is pretty interesting. I saw that recently. They go to the Federal Reserve discount window. They get those Federal Reserve notes by collateralizing that original instrument. And then they bring those Federal Reserve notes back to me. And then from there, I get the 500,000. Now from there, I'm going to disperse the 300,000 to the seller of the home. I'm going to disperse a 2 or 3 or 4% or whatever fee for the banking institution for facilitating Federal Reserve discount window services for me. And then I keep the rest of the money and I get the house.
Wow. All right. So I just want to break this down before we move on so the viewer understands it, right? So you're basically, when you're signing a mortgage, you're creating the negotiable instruments. You're creating the currency that didn't exist before. If you endorse it to yourself, that those funds are theoretically supposed to come to you, basically, and put you in control. You give a small percentage for the Federal Reserve window for basically, I guess, helping with the transaction.
Yes.
And then pretty much the house is basically paid for. So in theory, everything that we charge that we think is a loan is really paid by the Federal Reserve the moment that we make that charge. Whether it's a small credit card charge, whether it's a large mortgage, that's automatically paid for by the Federal Reserve. So essentially, loaning institutions, as they're called, are kind of a fraud. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they aren't loaning you anything. You've never been loaned anything in your entire life. So the reason why they can legally call it loaning, it's not actually technically. So when you release the negotiable instrument with the blank endorsement, you are saying this is no longer mine. I don't want it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't claim it. I don't want it. Get it away from me. Essentially, not quite, but kind of. You're saying I release this with no conditions and I don't care, basically.
Okay.
Now what they're doing is they're pretending as though they found this thing in the street, basically, right? You've said you have a big huge bag of money, huge duffel bag full of money, and you set it down, and you're like, I don't really care about this anymore, and you walk away from it, basically, right? You don't know you're doing that, and you don't know there's money in the bag. Okay. Now the bank says, "Oh, look, there's a bunch of money here, and it's no one has claimed this money. We're going to take it." So they take that bag, and it's filled with special kind of money, basically that you can't go down to the street corner and give it to somebody and exchange it. So, but in law, that those promissory notes, that bag full of money, quote unquote, has the same value as Federal Reserve notes in law. So if I were to go into, let's say, a hotel, and I were to place a bunch of those on the table and they didn't accept it, I could sue the hotel and I would win every single time, because those promissory notes, as long as they're structured in a certain way, have the same value in law as Federal Reserve notes. So the idea that everyone is accepting Federal Reserve notes is just a weird social thing that people don't understand, because technically speaking, you can accept all types of promissory notes and they all have the same value and they're all exchangeable for Federal Reserve notes. So what they do is they take that bag full of stuff that you thought didn't have any value. They go to the Federal Reserve window and they exchange or swap that bag full of the same value for Federal Reserve notes. So they give the bag through this little window. You can almost think of it as a physical thing. They have this bag full of your promissory notes. They put it up against a window. They push it through the window. They wait a moment. They get that same bag back out again, and they open it, and it's filled with Federal Reserve notes. Now what they do is that now they loan, quote unquote, you that money that they just got. Now, in the letter of the law, you never claimed the value of that original instrument. So yes, they took an unclaimed instrument that you didn't want to have anything to do with, as per the way that you endorsed the instrument, and they swapped that, and then they handed you back the value of that swap. So in the letter of the law, they are loaning you money. But the thing is that if you explain the situation to literally anyone, even people who are, criminals and drug dealers, are going to say, well, that's stealing. And the thing is that it is stealing. But not in the actual definitions in the letter of the law. When you swap out the blank endorsement for a special endorsement, now it's stealing as per the letter of the law. And what's funny is that stealing or purloining negotiable instruments is like up to 25 years in prison. It's taken very, very seriously. Now, a blank endorsed instrument, you can't say from the letter of the law that it's been stolen. A special endorsed instrument, if they do anything with it besides what I just described, it's stealing, and the letter of the law will completely agree with you, and any court will agree with you.
Now, you make a payment to your credit card. Your credit card is basically getting double paid at that point, is the gist of it, right? So the Federal Reserve's taking care of, let's say it's a $50 bill, and then you're sending another $50, and that is an overpayment, basically, right?
Yeah, you are failing to claim the value of all of the negotiable instruments that you are constantly manufacturing. So every time you promise to pay anything, whether it be a credit card, a business loan, whether it be a mortgage, whether it be even like a penal bond, something like that, because the definition of the word payment means performance.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that people think that payment means to send in Federal Reserve notes. That's not what payment means at all. Payment means performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that per the law, there's a lot of different ways you can perform. So the thing is that, like for example, I'm involved in a bunch of litigation, and the lawyers are so funny. They say that I'm running a debt elimination scam. And I laugh so hard because they don't even know what debt is. They don't even know what a payment is. They don't even know what a Federal Reserve note is. And I just kick back and just laugh hysterically. They don't have a clue. So the thing is that payment, people think that payment means Federal Reserve note. That's not what a payment is.
Mm-hmm.
It's got nothing to do with anything, frankly. A Federal Reserve note is one of infinite types of promissory notes, all of which can be sent in to satisfy a debt or obligation. And as per like UCC 3-603 subsection B, people have heard this term tender, right? So when you look up the definition of the word tender means to offer without stipulation or condition. So if I extend my hand and there's something inside of it, and I say, without any conditions or without any attachments, you can have this. That's tender,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now it's their decision to accept it or not, right? So delivery, so acceptance and delivery mean the same thing. So once that tender has been delivered, it's considered accepted in the law, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that when you tender and the other party unjustifiably rejects that tender, as per UCC 3-603 subsection B, whatever amount that you tendered comes off of your bill anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, you offer to tender a promissory note to or a bill of exchange to a credit card company, and they say, we don't accept that kind of payment, which is what they do all the time. Now, what's beautiful about those letters is those letters become the evidence that you need to utilize UCC 3-603B in court. Those letters are evidence that the debt is now gone.
Wow. Okay, so let me ask you this. Now, we're part of, for the viewers, let me give a little bit of background on this. With the One Stupid Fuck website, you've built a community. You got a huge community of, let's call them picklitarians, right? We're all picklitarians. All right.
Well, that's the Amnesty Coalition. So I have the website, and then I have the Amnesty Coalition, which that's this flag here. And then I'm also working on a coat of arms
Mm-hmm.
and another flag. And then I just released a new website, the amnestycoalition.org.
Mm-hmm.
It is under construction pretty heavily, but there's a lot there, and I've been working on it a lot, and it is live.
Wow, wow. All right. So we have this group that is actually through litigation because all of us have, charged our credit cards. A lot of us have mortgages. A lot of us have had mortgages, right? So we've been launching lawsuits. A lot of us have, and it seems as though, firstly, the credit card companies, from my experience, really freak out because it seems like they don't want us to know this information, right? But it also seems as though the courts try to get rid of these kind of cases. Could you talk a little bit about your experiences within litigation of trying to claim all these promissory notes, all these securities that you've unknowingly given away?
I don't have those issues. I think the main issue is that people don't know how to play the game, and they enter into the arena not knowing how to play the game, and then they get pissed off because they're thrown out. When you know how to play the game, we have a hearing set for our first case, which is our roughest case. Actually, our other three cases are like rock solid. The first case is the only. It's not really rough. It's just a little bit of like a interesting, stretched out kind of a situation. But the other three, case 2, 3, and 4, are like solid as a rock. I mean, there's no way to. You couldn't move those things 1 inch with all the weaponry in the world. I mean, they're just. I'm just letting the slow grind of justice just bring this thing through and just create, just eat everything, because that's just what's going to happen. But case number 1 is a little bit more kind of all over the place. It's a little bit more fascinating and interesting. We have a hearing set for case number 1, which is brand new. These cases are very slow, but we have case 2, case 3, and case 4. We're many filings deep on the docket, and the court hasn't even responded to anything yet. So hardly. I mean, the court hasn't hardly said anything about anything. So, like for example, on my Amex case, we're 28 filings deep on the docket, and the court hasn't said a fucking word. And well, the court finally said, okay, that's it. Finish off these last couple of filings, and then everything's going to come to us, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do. But they haven't actually said anything yet. But you got to think, when you're in litigation, you start off in litigation, and then you go through litigation, and then if it gets dismissed or something happens, you need to learn everything you can, and then you put an objection on the record, and then you can go to appeals. The appeals are based off of where the objections are on the record, right? I don't know exactly how it all works, but I'm just, from what I've studied, I'm just kind of giving you a super brief outline of what I've learned so far, having not done it quite yet and preparing to do it as needed. So you have appeals. You can do one of the things we're looking at right now, which is really fascinating, is quitam cases. So quitam cases is basically when there's like stolen negotiable instruments or money or whatever, and you're actually going to the government in order to transform that situation into a criminal case, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a whole different line. Most people in the court system, everyone thinks that criminal and civil are like these completely different things. They kind of are, and they're kind of not at the same time. But anyways, for the purposes of this show, we'll just say that they kind of are, even though they're kind of not. So you can go civil, and then you can go civil appeals, and then you can go criminal. Okay, through a quitam is what we're looking at right now as a really good option in terms of getting these negotiable instrument cases to be rolling on the criminal side. And then you also have appeals courts, and then you also have the Court of Federal Claims, which is actually a special court that you go to file complaints and get damages for. Let's say, for example, your local DA won't pick up your criminal case. You would go to the Court of Federal Claims and you would sue the DA in the Court of Federal Claims. Now, again, I haven't done all this. This is all just part of my research, and I'm just kind of looking at things and trying to get as much in the hopper as I can and try to get as many contingencies as I possibly can, as many backup plans as I possibly can. That way I don't get too latched on to any one case, because then that's when you start getting nervous, and that's when things start to go kind of awry, right? I want to have 15 cases and I want to have 300 backup plans. Then I'll be like, all right, cool. Then, I could lose 1 or 2 and it doesn't matter. And it's just not, I'm trying to keep it. I don't want to make this, it's very pleasurable to have a situation where there's a lot going on and you're in an abundant mindset. It's very unpleasurable if you don't have that. So the thing is that I want to try to keep that as much as possible. And then also I want to make sure I have many additional steps that I can take if something does go south. But so far, absolutely nothing we are doing has gone south. Now,
Oh, wow. Okay.
absolutely nothing we are doing has moved much of anywhere either. There's been a lot of back and forth, and I kind of look at it as like a train in a train station, right? So I have a train, the train's in the train station, and the engine on a lot of these cases is like either just starting or just about to start. It hasn't even, so that you have to start the engine first, and then it warms up, and then you get it all prepared, and then you load it up, and then you leave the station, right? So we're not even at that point yet. We're at the point of like, okay, we have a train station, we have a train, and we're getting close to starting it up. Now you got to realize, any case, if they called me tomorrow and they said, fuck it, we want to settle, let's just do whatever you want, whatever. The train was never even turned on, and the entire game is over, and I got what I wanted, and it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So the train doesn't necessarily need to leave the station in order to win the case, you know.
Got it.
So it's just you know, and I just released 2 videos recently on my my YouTube channel. One is a litigation mini course video number 1, and the second one is litigation mini course video number 2. And they go into complaints, structuring of complaints, how to use Pacer. We go through one of my dockets, and then we're going to continue to do more and more videos like this. One of the videos that we have planned next in early June is the 3rd video for the litigation mini course is going to be myself and my right-hand man, Joey Kimbrough. We are going to be live on Pacer on a show, logging into Pacer and going through the original Wesley Snipes case section by section through the docket, and we're going to be doing a deep dive on the Wesley Snipes case.
You're talking about the Wesley Snipes tax evasion case?
Yes.
And how is that going to inform the viewer as to this process?
It's gonna kind of give you an idea as to how cases go down, and how are things filed, and what kind of filings, and what are declarations versus affidavits, and how do you file a motion, and what happens when you do file a motion, and how do you respond to a motion in opposition, how do you strike a motion. We're going to be going through not only the various documents that were a part of that case, but also talking about the basic structure as to how all this works and how cases are progress.
Got it. The thing that they often respond, and I say they because there's a few cases in progress, is they bring up a bunch of case law, and they say this is like the sovereign citizen theory. They call you these names. They say that it's ghost money, and, you know, essentially try to make it seem like we're a bunch of oddballs. I mean, how do you respond to those kind of statements? How do you respond to those kind of declarations if that were to come up for you?
Well, if you look in my cases, so if you go to williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com and you go to current and previous litigation, you can find the various cases that we are currently involved in, and any new ones that come up, I will be posting them there. And then you can go on my YouTube and you can watch my litigation mini course video number 1 and video number 2. Video number 2 goes into how to make a Pacer account. You can actually go into Pacer, find the courts in which my cases are at, and then you can actually open up the docket, and you can start downloading all of the items in the docket yourself and read them yourself for 10 cents per page fee through Pacer. And if you spend less than $30 per quarter, then that amount is just taken off the bill. You only pay if it's more than $30 per quarter every 3 months. Now, with that said, to answer your question, my original complaint is structured in a way where it's all definitional and it's all structural. So everything in the complaint describes the way that the entire process goes, point by point, by definition, by point, by definition, by point. So when they say, you know, oh, vapor money theory, that's just a failure to answer the complaint, because the complaint is a line by line item and they have to respond on every single line. It's not just a, oh, he's crazy, vapor money. They have to actually answer the complaint, which means they have to go through each individual numbered item and they have to respond to each individual numbered item. So if I hear anything like vapor money or if I hear anything like that, it's just a failure to answer the complaint.
So you respond to them and you say, hey, you didn't answer the complaint. Like,
you didn't answer the complaint.
It's a simple response. You don't even
I
have to.
I call almost everything that bar cards make, and it's a recent term that I've recently coined. I actually coined it on the second litigation mini course video, and I'm very proud of this term. It's irrelevant billables.
Mm.
So what it is, it's irrelevant information that was cooked up as a justification of billing their client.
Oh, wow, interesting, man. That's actually really
So
fascinating.
so the response is, thank you very much for your irrelevant billables, but
Mm-hmm.
you've failed to answer the complaint.
So they respond to you with a bunch of that case law that's calling it vapor money, ghost money
That's right.
theory, sovereign citizens. And you write a one-line sentence basically saying, "Hey, you didn't respond. You responded about irrelevant billables, but you didn't respond to my complaint."
Exactly.
So I mean, that's like three
There's
sentences.
more to it. You can strike that. A lot of times, what they do is that they put that whole vapor money thing. They put that in what's called a motion to dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, what you're doing is you're writing in opposition of the motion to dismiss, or you're writing a motion to strike that motion to dismiss. There's more to it, and there's more of a game to play there. But in essence, what's happening is that you've entered in a complaint that has exact and specific concerns,
Mm-hmm.
and they're over here just saying some like vague horseshit. Okay, now they
Yeah.
build their client in order to write up all that vague horseshit.
Mm.
So what you're doing is you're saying, thank you very much for irrelevant billables. You failed to answer the complaint. Let's get back onto the complaint. And the whole process of litigation, from what I've experienced so far, which is not a tremendous amount of experience,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more than most people so far, is that's all you're doing pretty much the whole time. You issue something and they're over here putting together irrelevant billables, and then all you do is just move that back onto whatever concern is actually the concern at hand, and then they're going to go off onto irrelevant billables, and then you just move the concern back to the whatever concern. It's like asking your son to take out the garbage, and he freaks out and throws a temper tantrum, and then you say, I understand, and then you pick him up, you brush him off, and you say, take out the garbage, and then he freaks out and cries and punches the wall, and you say, I understand, you're upset, I get it, now let's go take out the garbage. And you just do that over and over and over and over and over again until they take out the garbage. And it's so funny because an attorney at law, as per the definition of client from Corpus Juris Secundum, represents infants and persons of unsound mind. But what's so funny is that, from my experience, the attorneys at law act more like infants and persons of unsound mind than any of their clients.
So wait. I just wanted to pause you right there. So they look at any client as infants and people of unsound mind. Like if you need a representation, you are an infant or somebody of unsound mind.
That's why when you take on an attorney at law, you can no longer exert your rights.
Wow. Okay.
You actually waive your own ability to exert your rights, because you are now a person, or you are now an infant or person of unsound mind. Because the thing is that if you look at it, it all comes down to the definition of ward of the court. When you take on an attorney at law, you become a ward of the court.
Mm.
So if you're sitting there and you're like, well, hold on a second, and you stand up, everyone's just going to be like, shut up and shut the fuck down. Because the thing is that once you've taken on that attorney at law, you're basically just a child who's just kind of present there, and someone else is fighting your battles for you because you can't, because you're a little bitch. That's essentially how.
Wow.
That's the technical side of how that relationship works in a court of law. Whereas there's another option that no one knows about called an attorney in fact. An attorney in fact is based off the power of attorney sections from the federal and state courts. They have a whole power of attorney section in every state, and in the federal court system, they have a whole section of laws called the Power of Attorney Act. All right. Inside the Power of Attorney Act, it talks about what is an attorney in fact. An attorney in fact is a completely different type of attorney relationship, where you are the principal, and the attorney in fact is your agent. And through a contractual agreement called a power of attorney, you are giving that particular attorney the ability to do very specific things for you and operate as you in a court of law. But they're not representing you because you're an infant or person of unsound mind. You're actually presenting yourself, and you're fighting your own battles. And the attorney in fact is essentially like counsel. They're like your helper or assistant, right? It's a completely different way to operate in the court systems. And the thing is that when you go into the court systems in this way, you're going to be filing in as a pro se litigant. Now, there's case law, and it's very, very clear, and they even send you documentation when you first file your cases. They have to go easy on you as a pro se litigant. You are not held to anywhere close to the same stringent standards. And what's funny is you can look in my case, like the Amex case. So I have a bar card attorney on the other side of the table. I'm filed in as pro se. The bar card is fucking up everything. And I'm over here as the pro se being like, hello, you didn't do this, and you didn't do this, and you didn't do that, and you didn't do that. Whereas I can actually fuck things up, and the courts have to go kind of easy. They can't like hold my dick, as I say. They can't.
Yeah.
There's a certain they like writing briefs on your behalf. Like that's ridiculous. Like no one can fight your battles for you. But like there's these things called, let's say, local rules of civil procedure. Let's say you didn't quite maybe follow a local rule like just right, or you weren't aware of it or something like that. And it's something that can get fixed. A bar card can get smashed for something like that. When you're pro se, you can kind of maneuver that a lot better, and you can say, oh shit, I wasn't aware of that. I thank you so much. And sometimes even the clerk, I've had the clerk of the court send me, hey man, just want to let you know this thing is not quite right, and you should fix this. And I'm like, damn, okay. So what's happening is as the pro se, not only are you not an infant or person of unsound mind, and you have way better standing in the court, plus you have this cool relationship, this contractual relationship with what's called an attorney in fact, which is super powerful. Plus, on top of that, the courts have to go easy on you. Plus, on top of that, like there's no one to answer to. There's no one else filing anything. Like you're aware of everything that's going on in the case. I think it's a much better option for many, many reasons. First off, you're not an infant or person of unsound mind. Second off, you can claim your rights when you use an attorney at law and you go in pro se or sui juris. There's so many benefits I can't even begin to tell you. You're not paying, like for example, we have just a one-time very large fee upfront that we do for litigation. So you're not paying like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And the reason why we do that, it's actually a donation. The reason why we do a very large upfront donation is because we want to make sure that the client is in it for the long haul, regardless of any craziness that may occur during that timeline. Because the number one tool for bar cards, we call them bar cards, the number one tool for bar cards when they don't know what's going on, which is 99.99% of the time, it seems like, they will always fall back and default into threats, intimidation, and sanctions.
Mm-hmm.
That is like 1,000% they fall back on that fully and immediately and entirely.
Wow.
So the thing is that
bullying tactics, basically.
Oh, dude. I mean, just 1,000%. And they might say it very overtly. They might say it very covertly. They might pretend to be your friend, but all they're doing is just some variation of threats or intimidation. And I smash them hard. It's all irrelevant billables.
Yeah.
All of it. If it's not specifically and explicitly talking about endorsements, if it's not specifically and explicitly talking about negotiation, if it's not explicitly talking about negotiable instruments, the exchangeability of negotiable instruments, sections from UCC Article 3, if it's not pertinent and it doesn't have something to actually do with the actual negotiable instruments, their negotiability, the endorsements, or anything else, it's irrelevant billables.
Got you. Now, the whole thing with infant or person of unsound mind, they don't tell us that you hiring a lawyer means that you're basically saying that you're like incapable. That's what it is. You're giving your power to a lawyer, and then the lawyer usually has allegiance to the bar as opposed to you. Isn't that the way it works?
A bar card, an attorney at law, is what's called an officer of the court, and you can look up what that means online on Google. It'll pop right up. Their number one, I forget what it is. I think the number one allegiance is to the public. Number 2 allegiance is to the court, and number 3 allegiance is to the client. I could be wrong. It might be number 1 is to the court, number 2 is to the public, and then number 3 is the client.
Yes, that's what I've heard, actually. Yeah,
I forget. It's one or the other. But anyways, you are not the primary concern. You aren't even the secondary concern. You are the tertiary concern.
So you're hiring this, you call it bar card attorneys. The term that I love, we've been using this for the last few years, is bar agent, because they pretty much seem like they're agents to private society. But so these bar agents don't reveal to you the implications of you basically hiring them. Isn't that something that they have to disclose and say, hey, guess what? You're hiring me, you're paying me all this money, but you're not my priority. Isn't that something that has to be disclosed right from the top?
It probably is in the documentation that you sign when you take one on, and then you just don't read it and you just sign it, honestly.
Okay. Wow.
Or some variation of the wording of it is probably in the. I could be wrong. I'd be kind of shocked if I looked at something and it didn't say something along those lines. But it's possible that it doesn't. But I don't know. I haven't looked at contracts with bar cards, so I wouldn't know. But the funny thing about a bar card, the thing that just makes me laugh so hard about the bar cards is they think they need this bar card, and they worship this bar card, and anyone threatens to take away their bar card, and they just get so, it's like someone putting a gun to their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, we're going to take away your bar card. And what's funny is that the bar card is literally completely unneeded. That is the part that it's absolutely hysterical. These people are stuck in this prison, and they think that this bar card is the greatest thing. And if having it taken from them is like taking their still beating heart right out of their chest, like Kano from Mortal Kombat on a fucking fatality. And what's funny is they don't need the fucking thing at all.
Wow.
And that's the most fun. And it's the same thing with the driver's license. The only thing that they can do to you if you have a driver's license is threaten to take it away. You don't need the fucking thing at all.
Mm-hmm. So
it's just when you understand how these systems work, and you understand the basics of contracts, and you understand the structure of all these things, it's absolutely comedy. It becomes complete hysterical comedy, because it's sort of like you have a single mom. It's horrible. It's a horrible story, but it ends in a beautiful way. You have a single mom. She's trying to put things together. She's got 2 kids. She's going fucking nuts. She got 2 jobs. She's losing her mind all day long. And then she realizes one day that it's all bullshit, and you can just endorse all this shit, and you don't need to be doing any of this. And then it's just, and then they don't believe you. They don't believe you. They think you're crazy. There's no fucking way. That's all horse shit, blah, blah, blah. And then years go by, and then things get bad enough to where they're like, fuck, I'm literally going to lose my kids. CPS is knocking at my door. I got no money. It's at that point they get desperate, willing to do anything. Then they come to me later on. I was psychopathic 2-3 years ago. Now they come back to me, and then now all of a sudden they want to do all this shit, and then now they do it, and now they think I'm the greatest thing since fucking sliced bread. They think I'm like the savior of the fucking planet, and then they handle other shit, and then they just laugh hysterically because all that bullshit and all that stress and all that craziness was all just a complete fucking waste. It's the same thing that bar cards go through with their bar cards. It's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious.
Like you mean realizing that the whole thing is basically bullshit, and they've been part
they
of
can be you could open up your own law firm today, and you could be an attorney in fact, and you could put together a power of attorney and have someone sign it, and boom, you are an attorney instantly.
Wow.
You could be an attorney by this evening.
This is, so for the viewers, I just want to highly recommend that there's quite a learning curve here for people that don't understand these concepts, right? It's very important. You have how many videos, Brandon? You have 41 video series, and then you've released a bunch more, right?
39, and then I'm on shows like this like 5 times a week, and then I have a bunch of other shows and stuff that I release that are on my YouTube. So it's all over the place. You can type my name in anywhere, and it'll pop up. All sorts of shit will pop up.
Yeah, I mean, for the viewers, it's very important to watch a lot of these videos by Brandon. I mean, I recommend highly the 39 videos. That was my start, where my brain basically kind of built itself, reformatted itself to understand these concepts that were very foreign. But then as you get into your course, you start to realize things like you're saying, like that you don't need a driver's license. There's a lot of things that they've told you that you need, or at least hinted that you need them, that you don't really need. I mean, let's talk a little bit about some of those layers of BS that exist out there that we've been essentially lied to, thinking we need certain things that we don't.
Yeah, so the driver's license is pretty simple. The driver's license, when you go in and get a driver's license, so if you look up the definition of United States, which comes from 28 USC 3002, subsection 15. It says United States means, and then below that it says a federal corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look up, what's really interesting is you look up the definition of the word person. The word person, no matter where you look it up, you'll find lots of different definitions. It always includes what's called natural persons and then also artificial persons, such as estates, partnerships, associations, trusts, companies, corporations. So what's funny is that because United States is a corporation, in law, United States is a person. And you'll even see that in criminal cases, United States versus John Doe. It'll say in the jurisdiction and venue section, a lot of times it will say like, United States is a person as per the definition, and then it'll just give a definition somewhere, right? Now, if you go to UCC Article 9, Section 307, subsection H, you can find out where is that person located. It says the United States is located in the District of Columbia. So the way it works is the District of Columbia is like a country, and United States is basically a state inside that country. The problem is this. I've never seen any information as to where inside the District of Columbia, in terms of the physical coordinate location, United States is located. So then you look up the definition of the term U.S. citizen from 42 USC 9102. And subsection A says that you're a U.S. citizen if you by law, by birth, or by naturalization. By law means by contract, by birth. Who knows? Because even if you were born in the District of Columbia, who's to say that the area in which you were born was located inside of the state called United States? That's ridiculous. I don't think I've never seen any information as to where this fucking thing is located. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then you look up the definition of the term naturalization. And that's when things started to make a lot more sense to me. So naturalization comes from 8 USC 1101, subsection A23. The definition of naturalization is the most mind-blowing thing on the fucking planet. Naturalization is the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. And the definition of person in that section is an individual or an organization. So basically, to make a long story short, when you go to the DMV to get your driver's license, and then if you go into Title 49 and you look at 49, I want to say 49 CFR 390.5T.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you go to that one and then you type into a search function, type in the word driver and go down, and you'll find the definition of the word driver. Title 49 is all about transportation, by the way. Mm-hmm. Driver means any person who operates any commercial motor vehicle.
Okay.
That is the actual definition. And what's hilarious, you want to get a good laugh, click on the definition of the word person. Like if you use Cornell Law School and you look up the definition of the word driver in 49 CFR 390.5T, you'll see that the word person is clickable. It's a clickable special definition. Oh my Lord. This one gave me a good laugh. We have a good laugh about this. So the definition of the word person in Title 49 of the CFR is person means an individual, firm, corporation, partnership, association, state, municipality, commission, or political subdivision of a state or any interstate body, as well as a department, agency, or instrumentality of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch of the federal government, period. And then it says, this definition includes railroads.
Wow. Interesting.
So that's the definition of the word person. So taking that definition, and now let's reread it. Driver means any person who operates any commercial motor vehicle. So I always laugh my ass off because if you take that definition and you plug the definition of the word person into it, it sounds hysterical. So driver means any individual, firm, corporation, partnership, association, state, municipality, commission, or political subdivision of a state or any interstate body, as well as a department, agency, or instrumentality of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch of the federal government or railroad who operates any commercial motor vehicle. Wow. So because naturalization is the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever, What happens is that you're going into the Department of Motor Vehicles, which I'm about ready to sue right now for about $500 million. By the way, I'm working on that case right now.
Wow.
If you go into the DMV, you are conferring the nationality of the state called State of California upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever. They make you sign that you are a resident of State of California.
Mm-hmm.
Where is State of California located? It's a business listed on Dun & Bradstreet, by the way. Where do you think, if United States is located in the District of Columbia, and we have evidence on that, where do you think State of California, the business that's listed on Dun & Bradstreet, is located?
In Washington, D.C., I would assume.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what's happening is that you are, by getting a driver's license, you are naturalizing into the District of Columbia. That is the entire purpose of the driver's license. Now, if you never got the driver's license, you don't need a driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
Once you naturalize into the District of Columbia, you're now under the District of Columbia rules and laws, and you don't have the right to travel in the District of Columbia. So you didn't need the driver's license until you got the driver's license.
Wow.
Once you get rid of the driver's license, you don't need the driver's license. They give you a little slip. When I turned mine in, they gave me a little slip and it said, "Why are you turning this in?" And I said, because myself and the principal, which is a whole other story, we're not residents of any of the 50 corporate states.
Mm-hmm.
You're only in State of California when you say that you're in State of California. You can look all you want. The location of your physical body has absolutely nothing to do with residency. Nothing.
Wow.
You can physically be located in what people call the state of California. You could be in Los Angeles for 30 years. If you never confer the nationality of State of California upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever in some sort of official capacity, as far as the law is concerned, you don't live there.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it works. You live wherever you say you live, and you can say you live there in any way whatsoever. That's the way naturalization works.
Wow. All right. So this is basically, by getting a driver's license, it seems like you're committing fraud in a way by because you're not physically living in Washington, D.C., but yet you are underneath this corporation of Washington, D.C. So isn't that essentially fraud?
It's again, if I was in front of a jury and I were to explain all this, they would say, hang them, burn the DMV to the ground, blah, 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 the whole thing. I don't feel that way. I try to go totally unemotional. I try to go totally definitionary. I try to make it very, very simple. Okay. The way I look at it is, we live in a country where people think that we aren't free, but in fact, you're so free that you can live anywhere you want by simply saying it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ultimate freedom. If I say right now on this show, I, Brandon J. Williams, hereby confer upon myself the nationality of New Zealand after birth by any means whatsoever, I now legally, which I didn't do, by the way, because I don't want to do that right now. But if I did do that, I would instantaneously legally have the nationality of a New Zealander.
Wow.
Now, to me, that's ultimate freedom. You can live or reside anywhere or nowhere or everywhere anytime you want instantly.
Wow.
You don't need to do a fucking thing or do anything. To me, that's the ultimate freedom. That's super cool and super badass. So people say that it's fraudulent. Was I coerced into naturalizing into the District of Columbia? Yes. But the technical procedure behind how that works, when you understand how it works, is the ultimate freedom. Wow. I live absolutely everywhere or nowhere or only in certain locations every single second of the day whenever I want by simply saying it.
So let me ask you, man, back in the day, I know in the 1800s, people were trading with gold, silver. It wasn't like this. It wasn't like corporation within a corporation, and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to become a citizen of the United States, thinking it's this big landmass, but you're really becoming a citizen of this 8 or 10 square mile radius of Washington, D.C. It wasn't like that. How do we get to a point where, the only thing I could think of, the word I could think of is fraud. How do we get to the point where there's this kind of wholesale fraud across our entire system where we don't even know what it means to get a DMV license? We think we need to get a DMV license. We think we need a passport. We think we need to do all these different things, but nonetheless, what you're saying is that a lot of these things are fraud.
Yeah, real quick. I don't think passports are. I mean, there are some people who think they're bad. I really don't think they're bad. It's one of the only things that you can get that I actually don't think are really all that bad, personally. Do we need them in an ultimately free society? I guess no. But when you understand the legalities behind what a passport is and the different options you have and the different types of passports and the different type of passport endorsements, which I do cover in a lot of my shows, types of passports is located at, I think it's 22 CFR 51.3, 22 CFR 51.3. Yeah. And then the various endorsements that are available for the various types of passports are located at 8 FAM 505.2. You can look that up and you can pick which endorsements you want. You can pick which type of passport you want. If you look at 22 CFR 51.2, you'll learn something that even the passport office does not know, which is hilarious. Passport may be issued only to a U.S. national. Passports are not issued only to citizens. They are issued only to U.S. nationals. And in U.S. national is defined at 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A22. And I'll read it for you because this is the only thing that passports can be issued to. And if you look at what a regular passport is issued only to a national of the United States. You'll see that in 22 CFR 51.3. But what is a national of the United States? Of the United States. The term national of the United States means a citizen of the United States. That's what everybody thinks that is issued to passports, but that's not true because it could be A or B. Here's B. A person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. And you can see this same idea echoed in 22 USC 212, which is actually the clearest and most concise way of saying it. 22 USC 212 is entitled Persons Entitled to Passport. And what it says here is just a quick sentence. No passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons than those owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. If you look right above the signature section on the DS-11 passport application form, it says that you are attesting that you are either a citizen of the United States or a non-citizen national of the United States. So there's two different types of citizenship nationality. There's 4 different types of passport, and then there's a whole shitload of different endorsements depending on what type of passport you would like to have. The problem is ignorance involving all of this information. The passport office doesn't even know any of this information hardly at all.
Wow. I mean, is this this information being out there, was this information put out there so for people that discover it, they could have a true semblance of freedom? I mean, why is it that this information has been so concealed from us?
I don't necessarily think that there's a part of me that doesn't really think it's all that concealed. There's a part of me that thinks that anyone could look any of this shit up. I started studying all this information from literally zero, meaning I knew nothing. I didn't even know the definition of money or tax. I didn't even know my asshole. Okay. And I started in September of 2021. I read 26 or 27 books by March of 2022. I launched my website in March 14th of 2022. It was only text at that point. There was no cool stuff. There was no video. There was nothing. It was just a bunch of text, and it wasn't even all that well put together. But it was a great resource at that time. In relation to all the other resources that were available. And then I've just continued my journey since then. So I am in like massive $400 million plus litigation. I have diplomatic immunity. I have my own nation. I have no state tax liability, no federal income tax liability. I am currently in litigation to start manufacturing my own money from scratch. I am going to have I'm going to have a relationship with the Federal Reserve so I can get Federal Reserve discount window access myself. All basically, I started on this journey. I was studying quietly the first 6 months, and then when I actually started to take action was March of 2022. So here we are. It's only been 2 years and 3 months, and I've done all of these things. So. And the thing is that you're starting to see more and more people teaching this stuff, and it's getting better and simpler. And because there's so many different people teaching it, everyone teaching it in a different style, the amount of access to the information. I mean, you didn't have any of this in 2022. I mean, none of it, nothing. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to go online, you'd find a website. It looks like it was made in 1995 by an angry old white guy who was really hard to read. You can't read it. That's all there was in 2022. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I'm talking about, back in my day when I was a kid, I'm talking about like 1964. Like, no, I'm talking about 2 years ago, bro. Mm-hmm. So now we have fun information. There's an entire academies now on this information. There's black guys, there's Spanish guys, there's white guys, there's girls, there's guys, there's Russians, there's hot, sexy black girls. I know this one girl. What's her name? Eternal Zion or something like that. Sexy black girl who's on Instagram who's got fucking 8 trillion followers. Okay, on this information. So there's so many different ways people are describing it, and it's getting easier and simpler and easier and simpler and easier and simpler. What seems like by the day. Mm-hmm. So what took me 2 years and 3 months to learn, I would say nowadays you could learn everything I learned in probably like a year or less.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, let's talk about the idea of the shit hitting the fan. I mean, you were talking about how, people are like, oh, Brandon's so crazy, but then CPS comes, takes their child away, or they lose everything that they have for some kind of fraudulent action via court or because they didn't know better. And then they come to you
and I'm the hero.
And you're the hero. That's a pretty crazy arc right there. So when people are being attacked by a fraudulent system or a cruel system or whatever you want to call it, then they get concerned about their real freedoms, basically.
It's like arguing with gravity. I don't argue with the nature of man. The only person who loses is me. If I get mad because women want emotional intimacy and I'm just not into it, fine. If I, it's just like people get so angry about human beings and the way that they operate. What is that going to do for you? That's all. It's going to raise your cortisol levels, fuck you up, and that's it. It's not going to do you any good. It's not going to help you relate with these people. If you're angry as fuck about cops, you're never going to have any success with cops. You're just going to raise your cortisol levels, feel like shit, and be worried about the system. I don't know what to say. It's just like, in my mind, the only option you have is just to accept this situation and learn to deal with it and understand it to the best of your ability. I don't know what that's all I do. That's my whole platform.
I mean, some of the things you've discovered, your coat of arms, creating currency, all things that are very powerful, all things that used to actually be customary. Could you talk a little bit about those two topics, like the coat of arms and the idea of making your own currency, and how this was, I guess, more commonplace back in the day. And now it's been, through fraud, through just not talking about it. For whatever reason, it's not something that is common knowledge now. But let's talk a little bit about that.
You are creating your own currency all the time. You are. Unless you're in some sort of maybe African tribe or something, and you're in the middle of literally nowhere, and you're just exchanging pelts and stuff within the tribe. If there's any sort of currency or funds or monetary anything, especially in today's world, you are now. Let's say we turn back the clock 60 years. Now back then you had checkbooks. Now a check is actually called a draft or bill of exchange. So what's happening is that, like I said before, negotiable instruments are two things: an unconditional promise to pay, promissory note, or an unconditional order to pay, bill of exchange. A check is a unconditional order to pay. You are ordering the bank to move these particular funds or currency from one account to the account paid to the order of, and then the name of the account that it's being paid to. So the thing is that those checks are manufacturing of currency because those bills of exchange have face value on them as instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then you have the big credit card boom. After 1971 was the last and final blow, disconnecting the gold and silver coins and gold and silver from the monetary supply. The 70s is the same time period where you have this explosion of credit. And I suppose if you wanted to be a conspiracy theorist about it, you could say that was the plan all along, to disconnect that finally. And then once they did, to create the credit system. Because then you have the three credit bureaus, you have the credit system, you have the credit cards, you have the fact that you need to be approved, all this stuff. It's all false. Anytime you ask for credit, you're supposed to be issued it. And if you're not issued it, you can sue and you can get damages and all the credit you want. And then if you endorse it in a certain way, you never have to perform on it and it all disappears. That's the way that the law actually explains all this. And the government gave us the ability to do this in 1933. We've had this ability for almost 100 years, and just nobody knows about it. That's the problem.
So wait, you're saying, sorry, hold that thought real quick. So you're saying if a credit card company rejects you, you have rock bottom credit, and the credit card company rejects you, you could actually sue them.
Easy. You'll always win. Easiest fucking thing in the world. And what's funny is we're starting to do some tests. When you start suing them and beating them down after a few times, they stop denying you, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
So, wow. Interesting, man. That is fascinating.
So the definition of the term credit is permission to defer performance to a later date.
Mm-hmm.
When they took away all the gold and silver coin through the Gold Abrogation Act of 1933 and the Emergency Banking Act of 1933, people were like, well, how in the fuck is anybody supposed to pay for anything? And what they did is they gave everyone the right to infinitely defer performance to a later date. So we live in a society where that's why it's a promissory note. Everything's a promissory note. Everything's a bill of exchange, because there is no real money. It's all negotiable instruments and promises. And all we're doing is deferring performance on all this stuff to a later date.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the United States of America has the right to defer performance on everything to a later date. If you look at 18 U.S.C. 8, they even tell you very clearly on 18 U.S.C. 8, every single banknote, every single note, every single bill, every single everything in the whole country is by definition a security or other obligation of the United States. It's not your debt. It's the United States' debt. And they've given you an infinite capacity to push having to perform on that debt down to a future date. So we live in a world where performance can only be done by deferring performance to a later date. That is performance. And the word payment means performance. So when you tell the credit card company or the mortgage company or anyone else, even if you failed to claim the original instrument, you can always go back and reclaim that instrument. But if you didn't want to go down that route, you can go down another route. There's a million different routes. Another route is that you can perform by deferring having to perform to a later date.
Got you.
And that is literally the legal definition of credit. It's exerting your credit to make a payment, because the word payment means to perform on a duty, application, or contract. So when you defer payment to a later date, you are paying by doing that.
Got it. Wow. Fascinating. So is there any lawsuit templates you have in terms of suing credit card companies that reject one? Is there a template for that?
I mean, once they receive the application, they've received the negotiable instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
once you sign up, they've already gotten paid. So you can go after that. You can go after it that way. You can go after it a million different ways. There's a million different ways you can do it. You can see all my lawsuits, but I'll tell you right now, if you think a template is going to get you through litigation, you are in for a very, very rude awakening. Litigation is an extremely fluid, live combat situation. Just so everyone's aware, the idea of templates or prepackaged things, don't even try it.
You got to learn.
You're going to be fucking eaten alive, murdered, and your flesh is going to be strewn all over the building.
So you need to learn this stuff. I mean, you need to take the
Yes.
courses.
You can look at templates, and you can look at what other people are doing, and you can say, fuck it, I'll spend $405, and you can enter into the courtroom and throw some shit in there and see what happens, and you can fail, and you can learn. But if you think you're just going to take someone else's shit and just throw it in there and you're just going to win cases, that's literally hysterical. You are literally feeding yourself into a wood chipper just be like, fuck it, I know I'm going to lose, and throw some shit in the case that someone else wrote. That's okay. Mm-hmm. But if you think you're going to take someone else's shit and throw it in there and you're going to win,
what's the learning curve? What do you recommend to people in terms of what they need to learn first? What are like the videos, the content that they need to really learn well before they're ready for this process?
The definitions of the words, terms, and phrases, and the local procedure. So you have the federal rules of civil procedure. If you're going to go to a federal court, like I do all my shit in federal court, because the reason why I go in federal court is because negotiable instruments, promissory notes, and bills of exchange, they operate in all the same way throughout every single sector of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. That's why you go to federal court. But if you're dealing with something that's kind of specific in one zone, you would go more to state court. And I could take my cases to state court if I wanted to, but the federal court has more resources. So far, I'm enjoying the process quite a bit. I don't think I would enjoy state court as much. Luckily, with negotiable instruments, you are dealing with a federal concern. I think they probably see more of these kinds of cases too at the federal level, I would assume. So the federal level is cool because you have the PACER, is the online login system, and it's the same system for the whole country. So you can do federal court cases anywhere in the whole country, and you can just use one system. Whereas if you go to state cases, it's a different system for each state. And then each state has different rules and codes and stuff like that too. It's pretty much all the same as the federal stuff. They just change a few things here and there, but still it's kind of annoying having to learn all the different wording that may be available. Whereas if you stick to federal court, you only have to learn the federal stuff. And then once you learn it, and once you learn PACER, and once you learn the federal stuff, you're good to go. And you can just go one after the next, after the next, after the next. But the idea that you're going to just file one case and win, I think that's silly. I think you should be studying. I think you should be learning. I think you should be taking courses. You should be going to your local law library. There are, I always joke, it's like when you're on like a fucking Pornhub or something like that. It says like find local MILFs that want to fuck you, click here. No. It's like find local law, like lonely law librarians that want to talk to you. Click here. There are. I've had so many reports of these local female law librarians that just never have anyone come in. Mm-hmm. And I've heard of stories where people make an appointment to visit with one law librarian and they end up getting 3. Wow! Because they're just fucking excited that someone's fucking there.
Wow.
So the thing is that, your local law librarian can become your best friend. They can't build the case out for you. That's actually called, but they can give you all the procedural knowledge. I want to do this. How do I do it? Well, that would be motioning the court to this, and you would do that through this sort of structure. And then I don't like what they said here. What do I do? Well, you can file an opposition, or you can file a motion to strike. This is what they look like. They can't tell you what to do with your case.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you would ask questions is like, let's say there's a guy who wanted to do this next. What type of document or what type of procedure would I use to get that next step done? She can answer that.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're going to build that out with whatever your declaration in opposition or your motion to move the case into discovery or whatever. And then you're going to write all that up and then you submit it into the case.
Got it. So, I mean, a lot of this stuff, the reason why we're not so in tune with this is we spend too much time doing other shit. Like, it sounds like we got to spend time in the law library learning this stuff, not trusting just your lawyer's going to take care of it. It's like a crisis of knowledge more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from zero to billionaire in not quite billionaire, obviously, but from zero to billionaire, we're looking at 3 years total investment.
Wow.
And now it's way less than that, by the way. Mm-hmm. And the whole time you're making money, the whole time you're collecting all this cash, you're doing something good to actually change the world for the better. So you want to be a real police officer, you want to be a real hero, you want to be a real Spider-Man. I don't know. I feel like fucking Spider-Man, bro.
Yeah.
I feel like Spider-Man, but I'm getting paid like fucking Batman.
Wow.
Batman had all that money and he had that underground cave and he had that butler guy, I forget his name, and he had all the crazy gadgets and all the crazy research and all the crazy armor and the crazy cars, and he was filthy rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can become literally Batman doing this shit.
Wow, man. So how long do you think this system will survive? It doesn't, by the way, it seems like this is a perfect system if you want to have endless wars and create money out of nowhere, because it seems as though if this was like a gold, silver-based systems, we'd be a little bit more hesitant, and I'm talking about our government, to go spending billions and trillions and money to Ukraine and money to the here and money to there, because it's real money versus this $35 trillion worth of debt that's obviously created from the debt-based system that then causes inflation. I mean, how long could this system survive?
So when you understand how taxation works and naturalization and the 14th Amendment, you just kind of learn everything. You realize that in a real gold and silver based economy, like let's say pre-1865, if they wanted a war, they would have to privately finance it. Mm-hmm. So they would have to actually basically run PR and marketing campaigns and get people to actually send in donations. You see that now, even like Trump pops up and says, we really need your money and blah, 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 or whoever. And it'd be the same thing, basically. But the thing is that they wouldn't be able to do all the crazy loans and financial goofiness that they have now. They would have to actually rally that. And they're very successful at manipulating the public. So I'm not saying they wouldn't be able to do it. I'm just saying it would be they would have to work a lot harder than they do now.
Wow. Awesome, brother. Awesome. I feel like we need some follow-up episodes because I really want our audience to really, take this stuff in. We should do another one in a couple of months from now. Is there anything in closing that you'd want to mention to the viewer? Anything that we didn't touch upon? Website, social media, the mic is all yours.
If you have a family, you become the lawyer for your family, become the lawyer for yourself, become, it is the most freeing, most empowering thing that you could ever do. I mean, you when you understand the law and you understand the functionalities of the law, I lived my whole life through private trusts. You can't touch anything. I don't own anything. I legally don't own a fucking thing. Mm-hmm. So you can't get into any of my shit. You can't touch any of my shit. You could have a court ordered subpoena for shit. You aren't getting nothing. You could have a court ordered garnishment of wages. You could do all that. I could just ignore the goddamn thing. You can't touch any of my shit, even with a fucking court ordered garnishment. So you have that, and then you have the way that you can structure businesses and trusts and stuff like that in a way where, I could build cars right here in my apartment building. I could build a car from scratch. I could have a whole car manufacturing plant. Mm-hmm. The EPA would never get involved. There's no government agency that would ever need to get involved in anything I'm doing or selling. Now, let's say I sell one and it explodes. Now there's a problem that I have to address, and there's going to be litigation. But the actual building process and the EPA and all this horse shit and all this weird global warming, environmental horse shit, all this stuff, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything that you're doing at that point. So there's those benefits. You don't even file a tax return because you don't have a tax liability. If you look up the definition of the word taxpayer from 26 USC 7701 subsection A14, the definition of taxpayer is any person who is subject to any internal revenue tax. So the term they use to describe that is tax liability. When you understand that all that is all based off of the definition of naturalization that we talked about earlier in the show, once you clean that up by whatever means whatsoever, which means literally just saying it, that's how easy it is to clean up taxation, you no longer have a tax liability. So then at that point, you would no longer fall under the definition of the term taxpayer. Same thing with state tax, same thing with city tax, same things with sales tax. And then you have credit cards, and you have the production of credit and the production of negotiable instruments, and you can claim all those and you can litigate for those. I mean, you're talking more money, more freedom. You can drive whatever the fuck you want. You don't need license plates. You don't need a driver's license. You don't need registration stickers. You can go as fast as you want. I'm in the HOV lane by myself all day long, going 100-something miles an hour, safely within the lines. I'm not like freaking people out and causing accidents and causing problems on the roadway. That would be, not good. But within the confines of not actually causing problems in other people's lives and causing problems on the roadways, this is the ultimate freedom, and the only person that can give you that ultimate freedom is you. That's it. No one else can give it to you. No one ever will ever be able to. No matter how good I get, no matter how much I charge, I will never, ever be able to give you what you can give yourself. It's physically impossible. And in the next trillions and trillions of years, no one will ever have that nailed. There's only one person that can truly, truly, truly give that gift to you, and it's you.
Wow, brother. Wow. That is very empowering, actually. Very empowering, man. Thank you so much, Brandon, for coming on to the Blood Money podcast again. Like I said, we should do another one of these soon.
I'd love to.
Very inspiring to have you on here. For the viewers out there, make sure you check out Brandon's website, onestupidfuck.com. You will never forget it once you're on there. Actually, you know what? If you're bored and you just want to laugh, just go to one. You don't care about your freedom. You just want to be entertained. Go to One Stupid Fuck. That's what's great about Brandon is that this is a source of entertainment, this website. What he does is a source of entertainment. It's more entertaining, I think, than most of the garbage that's on television or online. And you could learn a lot of amazing shit. But if you don't want to learn amazing shit, just watch Brandon's videos because you're going to be entertained. So definitely check out onestupidfuck.com, and of course make sure you go to americahappens.com, insert your email address so you can stay subscribed to our network. Check out our Rumble channel, and make sure you join us for the Blood Money podcast at least 4 times a week. We are here right on americahappens.com. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all on the next episode of Blood Money.